The greedy bullyfish. There was a big bullyfish that ruled over the ocean. Even the meanest group of snapping turtles had to obey it. One day, it ordered the turtles to catch fish. The turtles picked out the fattest fish and filled a small boat with them for the bullyfish to eat. Despite eating continuously, the bullyfish still wasn't full. It created huge waves, pushing the school of fish towards the shore, and commanded the turtles, "Hurry! Catch them for me! Catch! Catch!" Later, seeing the turtles were too slow, the bullyfish took matters into its own fins. It opened its mouth wide and charged forward to swallow the whole school of fish. Due to the strong waves, it was thrown against a rocky shore and couldn't get back into deeper water. Half of its body was stuck on the rocks, half in the sea, and the fish it had chased turned around and started to nibble on it bit by bit. 2. Valuing objects over people. Lord of Qi liked using hawks to hunt rabbits. Once, Zhu Chu accidentally let the hawk escape, and the Lord ordered Zhu Chu to be executed. ZHUANGZI, hearing this, came to see the Lord. "Zhu Chu has committed 3 serious offenses. It would be easy to execute him. May I list his crimes one by one before you execute him?" The Lord of Qi said, "Yes." ZHUANGZI pointed to Zhu Chu and said, "Zhu Chu, you were tasked with caring for the hawk for His Majesty, yet you let it escape. That is the first offense. Your actions have led His Majesty to consider taking a life just because of a bird. That's the second offense. And if you are killed, all the lords of the realm will criticize His Majesty for valuing birds over noble men. That is the third offense." Hearing this, the Lord of Qi quickly told ZHUANGZI, "Say no more, I understand your point." 3. 3 examples. Emperor Tanbing Kong spoke to his wise minister Su Kuang. "I'm now 70 years old and always feel like my knowledge isn't enough. I really enjoy reading books and learning from the wise, but at my age, it seems too late to learn more." "Too late?" Su Kuang replied. "If it's late, then light a candle." "I'm being serious, and yet you joke," said the emperor. Su Kuang responded, "Your Majesty, as your servant, I wouldn't dare to joke. What I mean is, if a person studies well when young, their future will be as bright as the morning sun. If they study well in middle age, it's like the sun at noon. And in old age, though, it's just the light of a candle. It still shines brighter than the darkness." 4. Dad. Over time, a son's view of his father changes. At 7 years old, Dad is amazing. He knows everything. At 14 years old, sometimes it seems like he might be wrong. At 20 years old, Dad is a bit outdated. His ideas aren't modern. At 25 years old, the old man doesn't know anything. He's so out of touch. At 35 years old, if only Dad had been as talented as I am now, he would have been wealthy. At 45 years old, I wonder if I should discuss this with the old man. Maybe he'll have some good advice. At 55 years old, it's sad. Dad has passed away. Honestly, his insights were profound. At 60 years old, it's tragic that I realized too late how wise and knowledgeable my dad truly was. 5. Archery Tale. A young man named Thuong Duong wanted to learn archery. He heard about a master archer known as the best in the world who lived deep in the mountains. His name was Du Long Tu Chu. Everyone knew of Du Long's reputation, though they also knew he was a bit odd. There were countless fascinating tales about Du Long, but when Thuong Duong asked if anyone had seen him or knew where to find him, no one could give a definite answer. These stories were just hearsay. Determined, Thuong Duong decided to seek out Du Long and prepared his gear to head into the deep mountains. After more than a year, Thuong Duong still hadn't found Du Long. Wandering the forest, he looked wild with messy hair and tattered clothes, yet he did not lose hope and continued his search. "Stop! Don't move!" a voice suddenly echoed. Startled, Thuong Duong hadn't heard a human voice in over a year. He saw a dirty old man in front of him, aiming a large bow with an arrow pointed straight at him. It must be robbers, Thuong Duong thought. Then he heard a swoosh as the arrow flew past his ear. Growl! Behind the growl, a leopard fell from above. Only then did Thuong Duong realize the old man wasn't a robber, but had saved his life. He quickly went to thank him. "Thank you for saving my life." "Saved your life? When did I do that?" the old man dismissed, waving his bow. "I shot this leopard to use its skin for a cushion, not to save you." Thuong Duong looked at the bow in the old man's hand, then at the leopard lying dead on the ground. The arrow shot precisely between its eyes, only the tail feathers visible. It was such a powerful shot it looked like the leopard had 2 feathers growing out of its head. "He must be Du Long Tu Chu," Thuong Duong thought. "You must be Du Long Tu Chu, the world's best archer. I have been searching for you for over a year. Please take me as your disciple." The old man said, "I'm not the best or interested in teaching you, but I will tell you a story." Once, King So went hunting at Van Mong Lake. Standing at a crossroads, he commanded his soldiers to drive animals out of the forest for him to shoot. As a result, the soldiers beat drums and rang bells, scaring the animals. A deer ran to the left, and a tiger appeared to the right of King So. As he aimed, a swan flew overhead. King So moved his bow back and forth, unable to decide which to shoot. Eventually, all the animals escaped, and King So didn't shoot any. A wise minister named Duong Thuk told King So, "When I shoot, even if it's just a leaf 100 steps away, I can hit it every time. But if you give me 10 leaves to hit at once, I won't hit any." After hearing this story, Thuong Duong bowed to the old man and said, "I understand." Saying goodbye, Thuong Duong built a hut to live in. He spent his days practicing archery, always focusing on his target, never blinking even if something was in his way. 3 years later, Thuong Duong had become a master archer, hitting his target every single time. 6. The Tiger. May die, but danger remains. There was a student named Nha Thok who didn't want a government job. Instead, he moved his whole family to live deep in the forest. There was a tiger that often crouched outside their fence, watching the house. Nha Thok told his family, "We need to be careful about this tiger and not let it get into the house." He built a wall around the house and planted many thorny bushes on the outside. As soon as the sun rose, they would beat drums and gongs to scare the tiger away. When robbers came down from the mountains, they lit a big fire, and the tiger, afraid of fire, dared not come near. For a year, everyone in the house remained safe. When the cold winter came one night, the hungry tiger thought of breaking into H.A. Thok's house to take a pig. Although it was very afraid of fire, it was so hungry that it took the risk. It jumped forcefully, cleared the fire, and clawed at the wall. The thorns on the wall pricked it, causing it to drop into the fire. Burned severely, it leaped up, screamed, and ran off, causing chaos among the forest animals. It still couldn't get into Nha Thok's house. A few days later, it starved to death. Nha Thok was very relieved when the tiger died. He said to his family, "Now we are safe. We have nothing to fear." Gradually, the fence fell into disrepair and no one fixed it. A corner of the wall collapsed due to rain, but that didn't seem to matter. The thorny plants died and they stopped making fires. Then one night, another dangerous beast broke into the house and killed all of Nha Thok's family. Ever since, whenever this story is told, people say, Nha Thok only guarded against the tiger, but there are more threats than just one. They perished because they were not careful.
If you like this video, please comment 1, And if you don't, comment too. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
7. 3 times of regret. Jack Stubborn was a stubborn man who always thought he was right and liked to do the opposite of others. In the past, he farmed in the northern part of Kwai Mountain, planting rice on the dry mountain slopes and other crops at the moist, low foot of the mountain. His friend objected, "Rice likes moist conditions, so it should be planted at the foot of the mountain. Other crops do well in dry conditions, so they should be planted on the slopes. You're doing it the wrong way against their natural growing habits, and it won't yield good results." Jack didn't listen to his friend, and after farming this way for 10 years, his family didn't even have enough food to eat. Only then did he notice how his friend was farming, with rice in the wet areas and crops on the dry land, and indeed, his friend had a bountiful harvest. So he apologized to his friend. "I was wrong before. I should have listened to you sooner." Later, Jack went into business in Van Thuong. He thought his previous failures were due to not following others, so now he decided to do exactly as others did. He bought what others bought and sold what others sold. His friends advised him, "You shouldn't just follow others. Your goods will be late to the market compared to others, and by the time you bring them in, the market will already be saturated with them. A good businessman brings in goods that others don't have, so when the opportunity arises, he can make a significant profit." Jack didn't listen, and 10 years later he was so destitute he didn't even have capital for his business. He remembered his friend's advice from 10 years earlier and went to apologize. "You were right, and I regret not listening to you." Later, Jack and a friend went fishing in the East Sea. As they approached a whirlpool area, his friend warned him, "Don't go any further that way. Ahead is a whirlpool, and if we go in, we won't be able to get out." Jack thought there were many fish ahead, so he ignored his friend's advice and kept going. As a result, their boat was caught in the whirlpool, but luckily, a large fish thrashed, creating big waves that helped them escape. When he expressed his regret, his hair had already turned white, and his body was thin like a candle. He went to find his old friend, bowed twice, and pointed to the sky, saying, "Before I was too stubborn. Now I ask heaven to witness that from this day forward I will change." His friend laughed and said, "You are old now. Your youth is gone. What good will changing do now?" 8. The Philosophy of Balloons. One day, some white kids were playing in a park when an old man selling balloons rolled his cart in. The white kids ran over excitedly, each buying a balloon, and chased after them as they floated in the wind. In a corner of the park, a black child sat alone, too shy to join the others. After the white kids had left, the child walked up to the old man's cart and asked earnestly, "Could you sell me a balloon?" The old man looked at him kindly and said gently, "Of course. Which color would you like?" The child gathered some courage and replied, "I would like a black one." The black child happily took the black balloon, let it go, and watched as it slowly rose into the wind, standing out against the blue sky and white clouds, creating an unusual scene. The old man watched the balloon ascend and gently patted the black child on the head, saying, "Remember, whether a balloon can rise or not doesn't depend on its color or shape, but on the hydrogen inside it. A person's success isn't determined by their race or background, but by whether they have confidence or not." That black child was Keen, a famous psychologist in America. 9. Just bend down. Jesus took his disciple Peter on a journey. Along the way, they came across an old, rusty horseshoe. Jesus asked Peter to pick it up, but Peter, hesitant to bend down, pretended not to hear. Jesus said nothing, bent down himself, picked up the horseshoe, and exchanged it with a nearby blacksmith for 3 coins. With the money, they bought 18 cherries. Leaving the town, they continued their journey through a vast wilderness. Guessing that Peter was very thirsty, Jesus quietly dropped a cherry from his sleeve onto the road. When Peter saw it, he quickly picked it up and ate it. Jesus continued walking and dropping cherries, and Peter bent down to pick them up 18 times. Therefore Jesus smiled at Peter and said, "If you had just bent down once earlier, you wouldn't have had to do it so many times now. By not doing a small task, you end up struggling with even smaller ones." Not knowing how to bend down or doing it seldom is foolish, but bending down to those who humiliate you, that is stupidity. Indeed, bending down might feel tiring, but if farmers never bent down, how would they ever harvest their crops? 10. Believe in yourself. The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates once said something so famous that everyone knows it: believe in yourself. But where did this saying come from? Here's the story. In his final years, Socrates knew he didn't have much time left, so he thought of a way to test his students daily. One day he called a student to his bedside and said, "My candle is almost out. Go get another one to attach here. Do you understand what I mean?" "Clearly," the student replied. "Your wisdom and knowledge will be passed on." "But," Socrates slowly said, "I am looking for the most intelligent successor, someone who is not only exceptionally smart, but also full of confidence and extraordinary courage. However, I haven't found such a person yet. Could you help me find someone like that?" "Yes, sir," the student said. "I will try my best to find them and not disappoint your trust and teachings." Socrates smiled and said nothing. The sincere and diligent student faced many difficulties in his search. However, all the candidates he brought were cleverly turned down by Socrates. Once, when the student returned from a long trip and approached Socrates' sickbed, Socrates was in critical condition. Seeing his student, he took his hand, asked him to sit down, and gently patted his shoulder. "These past months have been hard on you, but none of the people you found are as good as you." "I will try harder," the student earnestly said. "I will search from cities to villages, and even if it takes traveling the world, I will find the best person to recommend to you." Socrates just smiled. Half a year later, Socrates was exhausted and near death, and still, the best candidate had not been found. The student, deeply ashamed and crying next to Socrates' bed, reproached himself. "I have truly disappointed you. I am the one who is disappointed, but you should apologize to yourself," Socrates said, then paused for a long time, and with compassion he added, "The best person was always you. It was just your lack of confidence that kept you from nominating yourself, causing you to miss the opportunity." Before he could finish, the great philosopher passed away forever. In truth, everyone is the best in their own way. The important thing is to have confidence in yourself, always nominate yourself, and value your abilities. 11. Following Dad. We often do an action and it becomes a habit, nurture a habit, and it forms a character. There was a guy who had a habit of going to the bar in town every morning before starting his work to have a drink. One morning, after kissing his wife and kids goodbye, he headed towards the bar again. As he walked a little way, he felt someone was behind him. When he turned around, he saw his child following in his footsteps in the snow, excitedly saying, "Dad, look, I'm walking in your footsteps." His child's words shocked him, and he thought, "I'm on my way to the bar, and my son is following me." From that day on, he never went to the bar again. 12. A lesson in humility. The religious leader and the distraught servant. A respected religious leader was praying solemnly in a garden when suddenly a distraught servant girl in a panic ran through the garden searching for her lost child. In her urgency, she accidentally bumped into the kneeling religious leader without noticing him and hurried away without even apologizing. The religious leader was visibly upset and stomped his foot in anger. After he finished his prayer, the servant girl, having found her child, happily ran back and was shocked to see the religious leader's angry expression. The religious leader sternly said, "Can you explain your actions just now?" The servant girl apologized. "I'm sorry. I was so worried about my child's safety that I didn't see you there. But weren't you praying? Surely the one you were praying to is far more important than my child. Why then did you even notice me?" The religious leader bowed his head in silence. 13. The expensive peacock painting. There was once a king who heard about a painter famous for his beautiful oil paintings. Curious, the king decided to visit him. "I want you to paint me a picture of a peacock," the king requested. A year later, the king returned. "Where is the painting I commissioned? I asked you to paint a peacock." "Your peacock will be ready shortly," the painter assured him. He quickly took out a piece of paper and soon finished painting a beautiful peacock. The king was very pleased but was surprised by the high price. "It took only a little time and effort to paint this. The work seems so light and easy. Why is it so expensive?" the king asked. The painter then showed the king around his house, where many sketches and paintings of peacocks were piled up in the rooms. The painter explained, "This price is quite fair. What you see as a quick and easy task now actually took me a whole year of effort and time to master. All that preparation was for creating this peacock painting for you." 14. The monkey. An old man with the demeanor of a sage walked into a small village at the foot of the Himalayas and announced to all the villagers that he knew a magical spell to turn rocks into gold. However, he said that in this world nothing comes for free. Those who wanted to learn this magic had to first give the most valuable item in their house as tuition. The villagers were very poor and had always dreamed of becoming rich. Therefore, they gathered together to discuss and decided that paying a little tuition was a small price for learning such a powerful magic. So they pooled their money and gave it to the old man as tuition, eagerly gathering around to learn his magical technique. They watched as the old man swallowed hard and chanted a lengthy spell, turning a rock in a wooden barrel into a glittering gold nugget. "Teach us now," everyone demanded. The old man did not hesitate to teach them the spell, making sure even the simplest villager could recite it by heart. "Pleased," he told them, "wait until sunrise tomorrow and you can start using the spell. I assure you, you'll be able to turn worthless rocks into shiny gold nuggets, but remember, when you chant, do not think of the monkey from the Himalayas." "Not even once," the villagers repeated skeptically. What did gold have to do with a Himalayan monkey? They thought the old man was being absurd. Why should they even think of the monkey? But it's been said that 1,000 years later, if you visit that village, you will find not a few people placing rocks into wooden barrels and murmuring the spell, trying not to think of the Himalayan monkey. They never managed to turn rocks into gold, but no one blames the old man for lying, as they admit. The more they try not to think of the monkey, the more they end up thinking about it. 15. Secrets to a Long Life. At the foot of Mount Tai, there's a rock called Tom Tew Stone. Legend has it that there were once 3 elderly men, all over 100 years old, who often exercised near this rock and discussed ancient and modern topics, always appearing happy and joyful. One day, they shared their secrets to longevity. Mr. A said, "Have a glass of wine before eating." Mr. B said, "Go for a walk after eating." Mr. C said, "My wife is quite annoying." The 3 of them laughed heartily, and that's how the rock got its name, Tom Tew Stone. The old men's secrets to a long life were simple but somewhat puzzling to understand. However, there's wisdom in their words. Saying, "have a glass of wine before eating" suggests that drinking a moderate amount of alcohol can extend life. "Go for a walk after eating" indicates that moderate walking can also prolong life. "My wife is quite annoying" is a humorous way to express that sexual desires tend to decrease with age and shouldn't be overindulged. These wise sayings advise us to maintain balance in all aspects of life, emphasizing moderation in everything we do.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
16. The friendship of GUAN and Bao Shuya. GUAN was a talented general during the spring and autumn period, serving Prince Huan of Qi and helping the state of Qi to become dominant. Bao Shuya, also known as Bao Shuk, was a renowned, intelligent man. They were very close friends. Initially, GUAN served the son of Duke Xiang, Prince Ju, while Bao Shuya served Ju's brother, Prince Xiaobai. After Duke Xiang's death, the ministers decided to bring back Prince Ju to ascend the throne. Fearing that Prince Xiaobai might return first, GUAN chased after him and shot an arrow. Xiaobai pretended to be hit by the arrow, deceiving GUAN and quickly rode back to Qi with Bao Shuya, where he became known as Duke Huan of Qi. Once Duke Huan ascended the throne, he wanted to appoint Bao Shuya as his prime minister. However, Bao Shuya recommended GUAN, who was then imprisoned. Duke Huan agreed and appointed GUAN as his prime minister. Under GUAN's administration, Qi prospered and Duke Huan became a prominent leader. Looking back, GUAN recalled, "When I was poor and struggling alongside Bao Shuya, I often took more than my share, but Bao never thought me greedy. He knew it was out of necessity. I once made plans for Bao that backfired, adding to his troubles, but he never thought me foolish. He understood that fortune is fickle. I was imprisoned 3 times by the king, yet Bao never judged me harshly. He knew I just hadn't found my opportunity. I lost 3 battles and fled each time, but Bao didn't see me as cowardly. He knew I had an elderly mother to care for. When Prince Ju was defeated and died, and I was imprisoned and shamed, Bao didn't see me as dishonorable. He knew it wasn't about minor issues or my reputation being tarnished. My parents gave me life, but Bao truly understood me." As GUAN was dying, Duke Huan asked if Bao Shuya could replace him. GUAN replied that Bao was too kind and would not be able to firmly handle corrupt individuals, which could harm Duke Huan and even Bao himself. Upon hearing this, Bao Shuya wasn't upset at not being recommended. Instead, he was happy, saying that only GUAN truly understood him. 17. Luck and misfortune. Once upon a time, there was a young man who always prayed for the greatest happiness. He faithfully prayed to the gods every day. His sincerity eventually touched the heavens. One night he heard a knock at the door, and when he opened it, he found an incredibly beautiful woman waiting outside. She spoke with a voice as melodious as a bird. "I am the goddess of happiness, the angel of luck." The young man, overjoyed, quickly invited her inside. The angel of luck smiled and said, "Wait a moment, I have a sister, and we are as inseparable as shadows." She then introduced her sister, who was standing behind her. When the young man saw her sister, he was shocked, thinking to himself how someone could be so unattractive. He hesitantly asked the angel of luck, "Is this lady really your sister?" The angel seriously replied, "Yes, she is my sister, named the Angel of Darkness, the goddess who manages misfortune." The young man then pleaded, "Can the Angel of Darkness wait outside and just you come in?" She responded, "That is not possible, as my sister and I have always been inseparable." The young man was very disappointed and hesitated about what to do next. At that moment, the angel of luck said, "If you find it difficult to decide, then we must take our leave." While the young man was still undecided, both sisters disappeared. When happiness arrives, misfortune often accompanies it. One should not recklessly pursue impending happiness, nor should one falter at the sight of misfortune, because happiness and misfortune always come hand in hand. Thus, be mentally prepared to face them both. 18. Joy. A young boy lived in a large house at the foot of a mountain. He loved climbing trees, swimming, playing soccer, and admired beautiful girls. He had a happy life. One day, the boy said to God, "I've been thinking for a long time, and I know what I want when I grow up." "What will you do?" God asked. "I want to live in a big building with a front porch, 2 St. Bernard statues by the front door, and a flower garden in the back. I want to marry a tall, beautiful girl with a gentle personality, long, shiny black hair, blue eyes, who can play the guitar and has a voice as clear as a bird's song. We'll have 3 strong sons, and we'll play soccer together. When they grow up, one will be a scientist, one a politician, and the youngest will play as a forward on a football team. I want to be an explorer, climb mountains, help people, and own a red Ferrari, but I never want to carry anyone else in it." "That truly is a wonderful dream," God replied. "I hope your dream comes true." Later, he injured his knee while playing soccer, and he couldn't climb mountains or trees anymore, nor could he go sailing. So he studied business management and later went into the medical equipment business. He married a beautiful woman with long black hair, but she wasn't tall, her eyes were brown, not blue, and she couldn't play the guitar or even sing, but she was an excellent cook and painted like a professional artist. Thanks to his hard work, he lived in a high-rise in the city center, from where he could see the ocean and the shimmering lights. There were no St. Bernard statues in front of his house. He had 3 lovely daughters, the youngest of whom was especially adorable in her stroller. Although the girls couldn't play soccer with him, sometimes they went to the park together and played in a spaceship. During such times, one daughter would sit under a tree, playing the guitar and singing soft, smooth songs. He had a fulfilling and happy life, but he didn't own a red Ferrari. Sometimes he didn't even think about how to boost sales of his products. One morning, as he woke up, he suddenly remembered his childhood dreams. "I am sad," he would often say to those around him, saddened that his dreams had not come true. In the darkness, he lay thinking for a long time and finally decided to have a new dream, which was to cherish what he already had. After that, he recovered and lived happily in his home, listening to the sweet voices of his children, admiring his wife's brown eyes. In the evenings, he would go out to watch the sea, letting go of his old dreams. Young folks, the truth is that each of us has our own joy, and that is the present. Optimistic people see it as a blessing from God, with a grateful heart to enjoy the present, while pessimists may lose the joy they already hold in their hands. We all have the present, and there is no reason not to enjoy the joy it offers. 19. Being poor is truly being rich. In the collection Aesop's Fables, there is a story about 2 mice who are good friends, one from the city and one from the countryside. One day, the country mouse writes a letter to the city mouse, inviting him over to enjoy the beautiful scenery and clean air of the countryside and to experience a relaxed lifestyle. The city mouse, excited, quickly visits the country. Delighted to see his friend, the country mouse prepares a lavish meal. Worried about not having enough food, the country mouse eats only a little grain, while the city mouse enjoys a handful of green beans, a slice of cheese, and a ripe apple. After the meal, the city mouse asks, "How can you live in the countryside like this? All you see are trees, rivers, fields, and mountains. It's boring here with nothing but bird song. Come to the city with me. You'll live in beautiful houses and enjoy delicious meals every day, just a week in the city, and you'll forget about your country life." So, both mice head to the city. The country mouse admires the elegant, clean houses. He reflects on his own life, running through fields from dawn till dusk, eating only wheat and grain, searching for food in the cold snow of winter and sweating in the summer heat, feeling unfortunate compared to the city mouse. When they reach the city mouse's house at night, the city mouse says, "You must be hungry after our long journey. We'll have dinner soon." They find plenty of fruit and cakes in the dining room, and the city mouse happily announces, "Eat up! There's enough for both of us, a delicious dinner." However, soon a dog enters, and both mice have to jump down from the table and hide in a hole. The small country mouse is terrified. The city mouse reassures him, "Don't be scared. The dog can't get in here." Then, in the kitchen, they find a piece of apple pie on the shelf and enjoy it until they notice a pair of bright eyes watching them. "Cat! Cat!" shouts the city mouse, and they both dash back to the hole in the wall. After calming down, the country mouse, wearing his hat, tells the city mouse, "I prefer life in the country. Yes, the houses here are nice and the food is good, but it's too stressful every day. I'd rather go back to the country and eat my barley and live happily. In the country, birds sing while I eat apples and corn. In the city, cats watch you eat your pie. I prefer eating corn in peace rather than pie in fear." Living in luxury but always in fear is not as good as the peaceful days of a simple life. Everyone sees life differently. What's important is how you view it. Don't envy others. As long as you like it, you can enjoy your own life. 20. Paying kindness with ingratitude. A deer was walking through the forest when it suddenly heard a cry for help. Following the sound, the deer found a wolf trapped under a fallen tree. The deer asked, "Hey wolf, are you okay?" "Stop asking, just use your antlers to move the tree so I can get out," the wolf replied. "I'm not sure I can lift it," said the deer. Nevertheless, the deer tried and after a great effort managed to lift the tree, freeing the wolf. The first thing the wolf did was check for broken bones, and then, cheerfully, he turned to the deer and said, "Dear, now I want to eat you." "What? Are you serious?" the deer exclaimed, shocked. "How could you be so ungrateful? I just saved your life and now you want to eat me." "Yes, you saved me, and I'm grateful for that, but I'm hungry now, so I need to eat you." They argued for a while and finally decided to ask a bear to settle the matter. They told the bear the whole story in detail. After thinking it over, the bear said to the deer, "You saved the wolf, and now he wants to eat you. That's not right. But looking at it another way, the wolf has a point because he's hungry, and that's why he needs to eat you. Let's go to the tree and see exactly how you saved the wolf before I make a decision." The deer and the wolf agreed, and they all went back to the fallen tree. The deer tried again to lift the tree, but this time he pinned the wolf under it again. The bear then said, "Use your antlers to lift the tree and save the wolf." The deer replied, "I've already lifted this tree twice today. I'm really tired now." The bear said, "If you don't have the strength to lift it, then don't. But how am I supposed to solve this situation now? Deer, don't be upset. It's not that I don't support you, I'm just out of options." After saying this, the bear walked away. There's really nothing that can be done. After saying this, the deer also left. Consequently, the wolf was crushed by the tree and died. There are many instances of gratitude and ingratitude in our lives. Some repay kindness with kindness, others with ingratitude, becoming a way of life for many people. We should be grateful for life itself and for those who help us during difficult times. 21. Life is like climbing a mountain. A young man who loved mountain climbing went to seek advice from a renowned mountain climbing expert. He asked him for tips on climbing techniques, including one particular issue. What should we do if it starts raining while we're halfway up the mountain? The expert replied, "You should keep climbing to the top." "Why should we go to the top? Isn't the weather worse up there?" the young man asked skeptically. "Climbing to the top means you'll face heavier rain, but it's not life-threatening. Going back down might seem easier because the rain is lighter, but it increases the risk of landslides, which could be deadly. The expert explained seriously. When it comes to storms, avoiding them might seem safe, but it could sweep you away. Facing them, on the other hand, might actually help you survive.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
22. The road ahead. The sky was pitch black. On the street, people hurried by. A steady tapping sound came from a wooden cane held by a blind man. A passerby warned, "There's a dead end up ahead." The blind man replied, "You won't know the road until you've walked it to the end." Undeterred, the blind man kept moving forward. The tapping sound grew fainter, quieter, until it finally faded away. 23. For everyone. A little girl and her father went for a walk in the rose garden. Taking a deep breath, the girl exclaimed, "Dad, do you smell that? These roses smell wonderful." Before her father could reply, they heard an old lady on the porch nearby saying, "If you both like them, feel free to pick a few flowers." The father and daughter carefully selected the most beautiful roses, thanked the old lady, and complimented the beauty of the flowers she grew. The old lady replied, "I grow these flowers for everyone to enjoy. I myself can't see them because I am blind." 24. The suspected axe thief. A man lost his axe and suspected that the neighbor's son had stolen it. As a result, he kept a close eye on the young man, observing his movements on the street, which seemed suspiciously like those of someone who had stolen his axe. He thought to himself, "He walks without making a sound like a skilled thief." Then, one day, he overheard the young man talking to someone else and thought, "He speaks in such a hushed tone, as if he's afraid of being overheard. He must be crafty." The man felt that the young man's walk and the sound of his voice were just like a thief's. In fact, everything about him from head to toe seemed to betray thievery. Later, the man found his lost axe. It had accidentally fallen into a ravine while he was chopping wood in the mountains. The next day, he saw the neighbor's son again and realized that his walk and his talk were just like anyone else's, not at all like a thief's. 25. Fishing Master. In the land of So, there was a fishing master named Chiem Ha, who fished unlike anyone else. His fishing line was a single strand of silk, his hook was made from a bent blade of grass, and his rod was a bamboo stick. He used a half grain of rice as bait. In just a moment, Chiem Ha would fill a cart with fish. Strangely, despite catching so many fish, his fishing gear remained intact. The line did not break, the hook did not straighten, and the rod did not bend. King So heard about Chiem Ha's extraordinary fishing skills and became curious. He sent for Chiem Ha to come to the palace and share his fishing secrets. Chiem Ha replied, "My late father told me about a master archer from So named Bo Thu Tu, who could lightly pull his bowstring and shoot an arrow swiftly, even hitting 2 golden birds flying high in the sky with a single arrow. My father said that it was because Bo Thu Tu concentrated fully and used even force. So I applied his method to fishing. After 5 years of practice, I finally mastered the technique. When I fish by the river, I focus completely on fishing, not thinking about anything else. My mind is calm, free of dark thoughts. When I cast the line, I use just the right amount of force, neither too much nor too little, without disturbing the surrounding environment. Thus, the fish see my bait as mere debris or bubbles, and they boldly swim up to bite it. When fishing, I always balance softness with firmness, treating the light as important." The stories of Bo Thu Tu's archery and Chiem Ha's fishing both teach a common principle. Whatever you do, you must give it your full attention and not do it half-heartedly. You need to use your heart to judge and apply objective laws to master it. Only then can you achieve outstanding results and success in your work. 26. Raising a bird. Outside the city of Lo, there was a unique seabird that no one had ever seen before, so they believed it was a magical bird. The king ordered his men to capture it, and it was treated like an honored guest in the royal palace, but the bird looked very sad. How can we make this little bird happy? The king worried greatly. Suddenly, he exclaimed, "I've got it!" The king thought of inviting a band to play music for the bird and ordered his chefs to prepare a feast for it. However, this kind gesture actually terrified the bird. It wouldn't eat or drink anything and spent the day flapping its wings in panic. After 2 days of this, the poor seabird died from fear. 27. When scholar Niu met the robbers. Niu was a deeply learned man who once encountered some robbers on the road. "Stop! Your money or your life!" the robbers shouted, brandishing their swords. Niu smiled, dismounted from his carriage, handed over all his money and the carriage itself to the robbers, and cheerfully continued on his way as if nothing had happened. The robbers were puzzled because usually people either resist or beg when confronted by robbers. Niu was the first they had met who behaved this way, so they ran after him and asked, "Why aren't you upset about losing your belongings?" Niu calmly replied, "A gentleman should not harm himself over material possessions." After Niu left, one robber remarked, "He really is a wise man." Another said, "This man is so learned. If he ever meets the king of Zhao, he would surely be highly valued. If he remembers this robbery and tells the king will definitely send troops to kill us. We should kill him now to prevent future trouble." The robbers agreed and chased after Niu to kill him. Hearing of this, a man from the state of Yan gathered his family and warned them, "Do not act like Niu when facing robbers." Not long after, this man's brother went to the state of Qin and indeed was robbed at the Hanggu Pass. Remembering his brother's advice, he fought back against the robbers. As they were numerous, they eventually overpowered him. Trying to retrieve his belongings, he followed and flattered the robbers. Angered, the robbers said, "We spared your life, and yet you follow us nagging, risking exposing us. We might as well finish you off to avoid further trouble." And they killed him and everyone who was with him. 28. The shadow. There was a person who found his shadow very bothersome and wanted to get rid of it, but no matter what, he couldn't make the shadow leave. Whether he tried hitting it with a stick or jumping into water, the shadow remained, always following him around. A wise man saw him sitting dejected and approached him, asking, "What's troubling you so much? There's nothing in this world that can't be solved. Tell me about it. Maybe I can help." So, the person explained how he tried to chase away his shadow and how stubborn it was. "What should I do?" he asked sadly. "Oh," the wise man said slowly, "if you really don't want your shadow anymore, just stand under that tree over there." 29. Effort. A couple went to the theater to see a famous play about the time when Jesus was crucified. After the play ended, they went backstage to meet the actor who played Jesus. While talking to the main character, they noticed a very large wooden cross tucked away in a corner of the room. It was the prop used during the crucifixion scene. The husband asked his wife, "Can you take a picture of me lifting the cross?" He then walked over to the cross and tried to lift it. To his surprise, the cross was incredibly heavy, much more than he had imagined. It took all his strength just to move it a few steps. Soon after, he was exhausted and had to put the cross down, sitting breathlessly. He turned to the actor and asked, "I thought it would be hollow and light. Why did you make the cross so heavy?" The actor replied, "Sir, if the cross was too light, I couldn't have performed my role properly." 30. The Owl's Cry. Hu Tzu was the prime minister of the state of Liang, and ZHUANGZI wanted to visit him. Someone told Hu Tzu, "ZHUANGZI's visit isn't just a friendly one. He wants to replace you as prime minister." Hu Tzu was so alarmed that he ordered a search throughout the city for 3 days and nights. When ZhuangZi heard that Hu Tzu wanted to drive him away, he was even more determined to visit. Upon meeting, he said to Hu Tzu, "On my way here, I heard a funny story. Would you like to hear it?" Hu Tzu asked. "What's the story?" ZhuangZi replied, "In the south, there's a bird called Yuan Su. Do you know it? This bird loves tranquility. It flies from the southern sea to the northern sea, only perching on the tong tree, only eating the purest fruits, and only drinking from freshwater streams." Meanwhile, there was an owl picking at a dead rat. Seeing the Yuan Su flying by, the owl looked up and angrily cried quack, frightened that the Yuan Su might compete for its food. "Are you trying to use your position as prime minister to scare me off like that owl?" 31. The Skull. When ZhuangZi was in the state of song, he saw a human skull in the wild grass by the roadside. The wind blew through the skull, creating a whistling sound. ZhuangZi hit the skull with a whip and asked it, "Did you do something terrible in your life to end up like this? Or did you suffer because your country fell and enemies killed you like this? Maybe you did something shameful, making your family suffer until they died, which led to this. Were you starving and freezing, or did you just die of old age and end up like this?" After speaking, ZhuangZi felt a bit tired, lay down on the grass, and used the skull as a pillow to sleep. At midnight, the skull appeared in his dream. "I heard your words during the day. You really have a way with words. You talked about loss, humiliation, hunger, and dying of old age. All these are the pains of the living. Death ends them all. Do you want to know the joy that comes after death?" ZhuangZi replied, "Yes, tell me." The skull said, "After death, there are no officials to govern you, no need to worry about the changing seasons. You're free and at one with the universe. Even a king can't compare with the joy I feel." ZhuangZi didn't believe it and said, "If I call the God who oversees life and death to bring you back to life, to your parents, spouse, children, and friends, would you agree?" "No, no, no," the skull replied, terrified. "I cherish this freedom too much. I'm afraid of getting busy, afraid of the struggles of the living world." 32. Cockfighting training. There was a person skilled at training fighting cocks, and the king invited him to the palace to train a cock. 10 days later, the king asked, "Is the cock well trained yet?" The trainer replied, "Not yet. It only uses its crow to scare other cocks." After another 10 days, the king inquired again, "Is the cock ready to fight now?" The trainer answered, "No, it's too excitable. As soon as it hears another cock crow, it rushes to fight." A month passed, and the king asked, "Is it ready now?" The trainer responded, "Still no, it just stares aggressively at the other cocks." Then 10 more days passed, and the king asked him again, "Is the cock good now?" "This time, it's ready," said the trainer. Now, when it hears another cock, it remains calm, like a wooden cock. It wins confidently, and other cocks turn and run away at the sight of it, hardly daring to challenge it. 33. Talent and the lack thereof. ZhuangZi and his disciples were walking in the mountains when they saw a large tree with dense branches and leaves. A woodcutter sat under the tree but didn't cut it down. ZhuangZi asked him why. The woodcutter said the tree was useless. ZhuangZi turned to his disciples and said, "Because its wood cannot be used to make anything useful, this tree has been able to survive like this." Leaving the mountain, ZhuangZi visited a friend's house. The friend was delighted and ordered a servant to prepare a bird for the guests. The servant asked, "One can sing and the other cannot. Which should I kill?" The friend replied, "Kill the one that cannot sing." The next day, a disciple asked ZHUANGZI, "Yesterday, the tree in the mountain lived because it was useless, but the bird died for the same reason. If you were in charge, how would you handle it?" ZHUANGZI laughed and said, "Talent and lack of talent are much the same. Both cannot avoid trouble. If you want to live peacefully, you need to find the middle ground between having talent and being useless." 34. ZHUANGZI was strolling in a garden when he saw a bird flying in from the south. Its wingspan was wide, around 7 feet, and its eyes were as big as a dragon's. It flew past ZHUANGZI, almost touching his forehead, and landed on a tree in the garden. "What kind of bird is this?" ZHUANGZI wondered. "It has wide wings but doesn't fly far, and big eyes but isn't alert." ZHUANGZI quietly took his bow from his back and walked into the fruit garden, aiming to shoot the bird. Just then, he noticed a cicada singing happily on a branch, a mantis lurking to catch the cicada, and the strange bird which had appeared behind the mantis, ready to eat it. But the bird hadn't noticed ZHUANGZI standing below with his bow. Witnessing this scene, ZHUANGZI exclaimed, "Oh! The massacre among creatures is due to their attraction to each other, leading to tragedy." After this, ZHUANGZI went home, closed his door, and spent 3 months reflecting without stepping outside. 35. Clothing and Scholarship. Once, King Luo proudly said to ZHUANGZI, "Our country Luo has many wise scholars." ZHUANGZI replied, "There are very few true scholars in Luo." "That's not true," King Luo exclaimed. "Everywhere in Luo you see people dressed as scholars. How can you say there are so few?" ZHUANGZI said, "I've heard that true scholars wear round hats to show their knowledge of astronomy, square shoes to show their understanding of geography, and jade pendants with holes, indicating their moral knowledge and decisiveness. But in reality, those who really know things don't necessarily wear scholars' robes, and wearing scholars' robes doesn't necessarily mean they know things." King Luo didn't believe it, so ZHUANGZI suggested, "If you don't believe me, issue an order. Execute anyone who wears scholars' robes without being a true scholar and see what happens." King Luo issued the order, and within less than 5 days, no one in Luo dared to wear scholars' robes anymore. A few days later, a person dressed as a scholar was spotted standing in front of the palace. King Luo invited him in, and indeed found that he was very knowledgeable about astronomy, geography, and matters of national importance. ZHUANGZI then said to King Luo, "In a vast country like Luo, there is only this one true scholar. Can you really say there are many?" 36. Fable. Some fishermen casting their nets into the deep sea pulled up a jar. Inside was a piece of paper that read, "Everyone, please come save me, I am here. The Sea King has trapped me on a deserted island and I am standing on the shore waiting for someone to rescue me. Please come save me, I am here." "No date. It's probably too late now. The jar has been drifting in the sea for a long time," said one fisherman. "The location isn't clear either. The ocean is vast. Who knows which way to search?" said the second fisherman. "It's never too late, nor is it far." "Every island is right here," said the third. Thus they felt unbound and fell into contemplation. That's often how it goes with common truths. 37. The Eagle and the Chicken. There is a Native American tribe in the United States with the following story. Long ago, there was a very tall mountain, and on its side there was an eagle's nest with 4 large eggs. One day, an earthquake shook the mountain, causing one of the eagle eggs to roll down and fall into a chicken coop at the base of the mountain. A hen volunteered to take care of the large egg. One day, the egg hatched a beautiful baby eagle. Sadly, the little bird was raised and grew up as a chicken. From its early days until it was fully grown, the young eagle did everything real chickens did. It scratched the earth looking for worms and insects, clucked, and could only fly short distances just off the ground. Soon the eagle believed it was just another chicken. The eagle loved its family and home, yet deep inside, it longed for something greater. One day, while playing in the yard, the eagle looked up and saw other eagles soaring majestically high in the sky. "I wish I could fly like those birds," the eagle said. The chickens laughed loudly. "You can't fly high like those birds. You are a chicken, and chickens don't fly." The eagle continued to watch its true family, dreaming of flying high with them. Each time it spoke of its dreams, the chickens would say it was impossible. Eventually, the eagle believed it was true, stopped dreaming, and continued living as a chicken. In the end, the eagle died. The biggest regret of the eagle's life was its lack of passion for self-discovery. It never dared to fulfill its dreams, never learned to fly confidently in the blue sky like its ancestors.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
38. The Beggar and the Dewdrop. One morning, a beggar was walking down the street. He shifted a bag of rice from his left hand to his right and was about to brush off the dust on his hand when a large, sparkling dewdrop fell into his palm. The beggar looked at it for a moment, brought his hand to his lips, and said to the dewdrop, "Do you know what I'm going to do with you?" "You're going to swallow me," replied the dewdrop. "It seems you're even more pitiable than I am, with your life in someone else's hands." "You're wrong," the dewdrop responded. "I don't understand what it means to be pitiable. I once landed on a large clove flower, making it bloom beautifully. Now I am nourishing another life. This is my greatest joy and fortune, and I have no regrets." Suddenly the beggar stopped walking. 39. The Paths of Others. One person wanted to cross a swampy area, but there was no path, so they had to carefully step 1 foot at a time. It was tough going, stepping left, jumping right. They didn't get far before sinking into the mud. Another individual, also wanting to cross the swamp, saw the footsteps of the person before them and thought, "Someone has walked here. Following their steps will surely be safe." They tried a few steps, and indeed it seemed right, so they walked confidently. But after a while, they too fell into the mud. Then there was another person who saw the tracks of the 2 previous people and without hesitation followed in their footsteps, ending up with the same fate as the first 2. Finally, another person came along, saw the tracks of many others, and thought, "This must be the way through the swamp. So many have walked this way. Just following these steps should get me across safely." They took big strides, but ultimately they also sank into the mud. Just because a path is well trodden on earth doesn't mean it's smooth and easy. Following in the footsteps of others might not lead to progress and can sometimes lead into traps. 40. Volunteer coordination. The first time we landed on the moon, there were actually 2 people involved. Besides Neil Armstrong, there was also Buzz Aldrin. Armstrong's famous quote, "This is one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind," has become a renowned saying worldwide. At a celebration honoring Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin's successful moon landing, a reporter suddenly asked Buzz Aldrin, "Since Armstrong was the first to step off the spacecraft and onto the moon, do you feel any regret about not being the first?" Everyone turned their attention to the person who asked this question, and then all eyes were on Buzz Aldrin. He replied confidently, "Folks, don't forget, when we returned to Earth, I was the first one to exit the spacecraft." He looked around and added with a smile, "So, I was the first person from another planet to come back to our Earth." Everyone applauded enthusiastically. 41. The statue. There was a handsome prince who was unfortunately hunchbacked. Despite seeking treatment from many doctors, he never recovered, which made him very self-conscious and shy away from appearing before his court. Seeing his son's distress, the king consulted the smartest person in the kingdom, who suggested a unique solution. The king then gathered all the sculptors in the land to carve a statue of the prince. However, this statue had a straight back and a confident expression, projecting a noble aura. The king placed the statue in front of the prince's residence. When the prince saw the statue, he was deeply moved. His heart filled with warmth and happiness, and he even shed tears. The king comforted him, saying, "Just keep practicing and you can be like that." Motivated by the statue, the prince started to pay more attention to keeping his back straight. A few months later, people began to notice an improvement. "The prince's back is much better than before." Hearing this, the prince felt a surge of confidence and became even more diligent about his posture. Gradually, a miracle happened. His back straightened, just like the statue's. 42. MENCIUS's awkward way of speaking. Once, the king of the state of Zhao asked MENCIUS's disciple DIANJU, "Why is it that your master MENCIUS does everything well but speaks somewhat awkwardly?" DIANJU replied, "Before I talk about my teacher, let me share 2 short stories with you." "Go ahead." There was a man from Zhao who went to the state of Chen to sell precious gems. He used the finest wood, magnolia, for the box and infused it with expensive fragrances, decorating it with intricate carvings and jade inlays. As a result, the people of Chen only bought the box and not the gems. This is an example of selling the box well but not the gems. Another story is about the time when the king of Qin married off his daughter to a prince from the state of Jin and chose 70 beautiful maidens to accompany her. In Jin, the prince was more interested in the maidens than his new bride. This is a case of successfully marrying off the maidens but not the daughter. Today, in terms of speaking skills, someone who only speaks beautifully may catch people's attention with their words, but the meaning is often forgotten. My teacher's teachings promote the virtues from ancient times, discussing the morals of life to guide people. If his words were too flowery, people would only focus on the style and forget the morals within, similar to the man from Zhao selling gems or the king of Qin marrying off his daughter. Therefore, MENCIUS doesn't prefer flowery language. 43. Wrong direction. There was a man who kept driving his carriage north. His friend asked him where he wanted to go, and he said he wanted to get to the state of So. "But the state of So is to the south. Why are you heading north?" his friend reminded him. "It doesn't matter which way I go. My carriage is very good," he replied. "Your carriage is good," his friend tried to remind him, "but you're going the wrong way." "It's okay, I have money," he said. "And I know you have money, but you should be heading south," his friend insisted. "North, south. What does it matter when my driver is this skilled? What do I have to worry about?" he dismissed. The driver indeed was very skilled. With a crack of his whip, the carriage sped off, kicking up a cloud of dust and soon disappearing from sight. Shaking his head, his friend remarked, "The better his conditions, the farther away from the state of So he gets." 44. Clash of the CLAM and the HERON. A riverbank standoff. 2 clams were fighting by the riverbank. One large clam opened its shell, stretched out its tired back, and basked comfortably in the sunlight. Spotting this, a heron pecked at the clam's meat. In response, the clam snapped its shell shut, trapping the heron's beak inside. The heron struggled frantically but couldn't escape. "If it doesn't rain today or tomorrow, you'll die of thirst," the heron managed to say despite its beak being clamped shut. The clam retorted, "If I don't let you go today or tomorrow, you'll starve to death." Both glared at each other, neither willing to back down. Eventually, a fisherman came along and caught both of them. 45. Differing perspectives. A gentleman brought a friend to meet a very famous official. After the friend left, the official said to the gentleman, "Your friend has 3 flaws. He smiled when he saw me, which shows he is careless. He did not mention his teacher while talking, which is a betrayal of his teacher. And it is inappropriate not to talk when meeting someone for the first time." The gentleman laughed and replied, "He smiled at you because he is friendly and approachable. He didn't mention his teacher because he is independent and nonpartisan, and he didn't talk much at first because he is straightforward and honest with everyone." 46. The bravery of the thief. General Tufat of the state of So had a liking for skilled individuals, and each person in his following had a unique talent. One day, a thief approached Tufat, saying, "I heard you appreciate talent, and although I'm not good at ordinary work, I excel at stealing. Do you value this skill?" Upon hearing this, Tufat quickly responded with respect, "To have someone as talented as you offer help is truly an honor for me." The officials around him advised, "Being polite to a thief like that is really not proper." Tufat replied, "The principle here is something you cannot understand." Later, when the state of Te attacked the state of So, Tufat led his army to defend against the invasion, but after 3 battles they were still losing and the enemy was growing stronger. The military and civilian officials of So were exhausted trying to devise strategies. At this time, the thief came to Tufat and said, "I have a little skill that I'd like to offer." Tufat responded, "Good." Without further ado, he sent the thief on his way. That night, the thief crawled into the camp of Te's general and stole his tent curtain. The next day, Tufat sent someone with the stolen curtain and a letter to the general of Te, which stated, "My soldiers found your curtain while gathering firewood, and I am sending it back to you." That evening, the thief stole the general's pillow and Tufat sent someone to return it. On the 3rd day, the thief snuck into the camp again and stole the general's hairpin, and once more, Tufat sent someone to return it. The army of Te, terrified by these events, exclaimed, "If we do not retreat today, we fear that the army of So will take our heads." Thus, they ordered a retreat back to the state of Te. 47. The magical saltfish. Once a hunter caught a deer and tied it to a tree before continuing his hunt. While he was away, a merchant passed by. He wanted to take the deer but felt guilty about stealing. So he hung a salted fish on the tree in exchange for the deer. When the hunter returned, he was shocked to find a salted fish where he left the deer. He thought that in such a deserted place, the deer must have magically transformed into a saltfish, believing it to be a mystical creature. Soon, the story spread and people flocked to the tree to see the magical saltfish. They offered prayers. The sick prayed for health, students wished for success, the poor asked for food, and the wealthy hoped for more riches. Many of their wishes came true, which led people to think of the saltfish as incredibly powerful. A large shrine was built where dozens of priests chanted and performed rituals, attracting people from miles around to visit and offer incense. Years later, the merchant who swapped the fish returned and saw the sign, "The Magical Saltfish," at the shrine. Amused, he laughed and explained that it was just his fish, not a magical being. He told his story, took down the fish, and afterward no one came to worship there anymore. In a few years, The shrine fell into ruins.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
48. Imaginary fear. In a certain district, there was a junior official who went to pay his respects to the district magistrate. The magistrate offered him a glass of wine. As the junior official was about to drink, he noticed a small pink snake swimming in the glass. However, since it was wine offered by a superior, he couldn't refuse and drank it with his eyes closed. After returning home, he suffered from severe stomach pain, was unable to eat, and eventually became seriously ill, growing weaker each day. His family called many doctors and tried various treatments, but nothing cured his illness. Later, the magistrate visited the junior official's home, saw his severe condition, and asked what had happened. The junior official replied, "That day, I swallowed a small pink snake that was in the glass of wine you gave me." "Really?" The magistrate was skeptical, but the junior official insisted he had swallowed a snake. Back at his residence, the magistrate kept thinking about the story. As he looked up, he noticed a red bow hanging on the north wall and suddenly understood what had happened. He immediately had the sick official brought to his residence. The magistrate took him to where the wine had been served, poured another glass, and showed it to the junior official. A red snake appeared in the glass. The magistrate explained, "Actually, it's just a reflection of the bow on the wall." Realizing he hadn't actually swallowed a snake, the junior official was relieved and recovered from his illness a few days later. 49. The most important thing. A king wanted his people to always live in peace and believed that if he could properly manage 3 tasks, his nation would remain strong. First, he needed to predict the most crucial times. Second, identify the most important people. And third, perform the most significant duties. His advisors suggested that he should master timing and manage schedules. Their current priority was to nurture clergy and scientists, and the immediate need was to advance science and enforce laws strictly. The king visited a hermit seeking advice on these issues, but the hermit didn't respond. Seeing the hermit tired from digging, the king helped him. As dusk fell, an injured man came seeking the hermit. The king helped him bandage his wounds and then returned to his palace. The next day, the injured man sought the king and said, "I was originally your enemy. I planned to kill you on your return from the hermit's place, but your guards discovered me and injured me. Meeting you changed my mind. Thank you for saving me. I am no longer your enemy. I want to be your friend." After the injured man left, the king again asked the hermit to solve the 3 issues. The hermit replied, "I have already answered them." "When did you answer?" asked the king. The hermit explained, "If your majesty hadn't compassionately stayed to help me, delaying your return, your enemy would have killed you. If you hadn't cared for your wounded enemy, he wouldn't have easily reconciled with you, erasing the hatred. Therefore, the most important time is now, as only the present can be truly managed. The most important person is the one beside you, as you can immediately affect them. And the most important thing in the world is love, without which life has no meaning." 50. Fire rescue. In the state of Zhao, there was a man whose house caught fire. After escaping, he wanted to go back inside to extinguish the fire on the upper floor, but he didn't have a ladder, so he decided to borrow one from his neighbor. After tidying up his clothes and looking presentable, he walked over to his neighbor's house. Upon arriving, he bowed 3 times before following his neighbor inside. The host then brought out some food and drinks as a courtesy. The man slowly sipped his drink, then courteously offered his neighbor 3 drinks in return. After finishing their drinks, the neighbor asked, "What brings you here today?" It was then that the man replied, "A great disaster has struck my home. The upper floor is ablaze and it's burning fiercely. I want to fetch water to fight the fire, but unfortunately I don't have the means to reach it. Everyone is just crying and watching it burn helplessly. I heard you have a ladder, so I took the liberty of disturbing you to ask if I might borrow it." Hearing this, the neighbor forcefully stamped his foot and said, "Why would you delay like this?" He quickly helped the man carry the ladder back to save his house, but by the time they returned, the house had already been reduced to ashes. 51. Cats and Mice. In the country of V, there was a man named Thuc Thi who loved cats and had over 100 of them in his house. The mice in his and his neighbors' homes were all eaten by these cats. "This is not good! This is not good!" the man exclaimed. Without any mice left, the cats were always hungry and meowing all day long. Thuc Thi had no choice but to buy meat for them to eat every day. Eventually, the adult cats had kittens, and those kittens had their own kittens. Generations of cats lived on eating only meat and forgot that mice existed in the world. They only knew to meow when hungry, and as soon as they meowed, there was meat for them to eat. After eating, they would just walk around, look around, or lie down and bask in the sun. To the south of the city lived a scholar whose house was full of mice. During the day, the mice would run around in groups, chewing on everything in the house. Hearing that Thuc Thi had many cats, the scholar borrowed a few to catch the mice. When the cats arrived at the scholar's house, they saw mice with upright ears, bright and black eyes, and reddish fur, making chaotic noises. The cats did not know what these creatures were and dared not catch them, just followed them around. The scholar, frustrated, threw the cats into the crowd of mice. The cats, terrified, ran around in panic. When the mice saw that the cats were harmless, they swarmed and started biting the cat's legs. In pain, the cats screamed and ran away. 52. Vietnamese cars. Vietnam traditionally didn't have cars, nor did the Vietnamese know how to make them. Because of this, many Vietnamese wanted to learn how to build cars. Having a good vehicle for transportation during war could greatly benefit our military forces. A Vietnamese person visited the Thanh country and by chance saw an old, broken-down car discarded on the outskirts of a city. The car frame, wheels, axles, everything was damaged. Nothing was intact. Seeing this car in Thanh, and despite its battered state, he was sure it was still identifiable as a car. However, he didn't examine it closely and, eager to achieve great things back home, decided to take the broken car with him to Vietnam. Upon returning, he bragged, "Come see my car at my place. I just made one and it was not easy at all." People flocked to his house like it was a festival, seeing the car lying there. They all believed his exaggerated claims. They looked at the car and debated, "So, this is what a car looks like. It seems useless. Is it broken?" "Yes, I think so too." Then the Vietnamese started to model their own cars after this broken one. Later, when people from Thanh saw the Vietnamese cars, they rolled on the ground laughing and mocked. "The Vietnamese only know how to make broken cars. What good are those?" But the Vietnamese didn't care about the mockery and continued making their cars their way, producing more broken cars. In the end, when war broke out and enemies surrounded them, the Vietnamese were not afraid as they had cars, calmly ready to respond. As a result, the Vietnamese pushed their broken cars onto the battlefield and were completely routed. 53. The Last Supper. It is said that when Leonardo da Vinci was painting his famous work, The Last Supper, he came across a young man deeply engrossed in reading poetry at the Milan Cathedral. This man had bright eyes and a gentle, kind face, and da Vinci asked him to model for the depiction of Jesus. Years later, the painting was still unfinished. One day, Da Vinci was passing by a small bar in a poor neighborhood and noticed a man with a very cunning, greedy look and a face that reeked of alcohol. Da Vinci had finally found the perfect model for Judas, the betrayer of Christ, and offered him some money to come to his studio. While posing, Da Vinci suddenly asked, "Have we met before?" After thinking for a moment, the man replied, "Yes. A few years ago, I was your model for Jesus in this painting." 54. Keep your distance. A long time ago, there was a hunter who used to catch wild animals and skin them, discarding the meat. One day, a male lion came into the area and found the fresh meat left by the hunter. The lion would eat the discarded meat every time the hunter finished his hunt. Over time, the lion and the hunter grew familiar with each other. One day, the hunter approached the lion, put his hand on its shoulder, and the lion wagged its tail as if they were friends. Thinking the lion was tame and considering it subdued, the hunter thought, "This lion is conquered. It has become my hunting companion. Why not ride on its back and skin it like the other animals?" With this thought, the hunter gathered his courage, jumped on the lion's back, and attempted to skin it. Angered by this betrayal, the lion roared fiercely, turned around, and knocked the hunter to the ground. The lion then clawed at the hunter's stomach, and within moments the hunter was severely injured. 55. Don't trust too easily. Long ago, there was a nomad who happily watched his flock of goats grazing on the prairie every day. One evening, a thief tried to steal some goats but noticed that the nomad stayed awake all night, vigilantly guarding his flock. Discouraged, the thief ended up just talking with him through the night without daring to steal anything. However, the cunning thief had another trick up his sleeve. He killed a tiger, skinned it, and placed the skin in the grass, leaving only the tiger's head visible. After setting this up, he approached the nomad and said, "My friend, you are lucky. The tiger told me to ask you for a goat for its dinner." Suspicious, the nomad asked, "Where is this tiger?" He looked towards where the thief pointed and indeed saw the tiger's head peeking out from the grass. Shocked, he told the thief, "My friend, take whichever goat you need. I won't stop you." The thief took a goat. Seeing the nomad's fear at the sight of the tiger, the thief's greed grew and he came back every day claiming the tiger wanted to eat a goat. In this way, the thief gradually took half of the nomad's goats. 56. Optimistic blind men. Two blind men were walking down the street with their canes. One of them said, "Being blind has its perks. People with sight are always busy, working non-stop. Farmers have it even harder. It's nothing like our relaxed way of life." "You're absolutely right. Farmers really have a tough life," agreed the other blind man. Just then, a group of farmers walking by overheard them. One farmer pretended to be an official and said mockingly, "You two, don't you see the official coming? Move aside quickly, or do you want to die?" Another farmer then hit each of the blind men on the head with a stick, shooing them to the side of the road. After that, he quietly walked behind them to eavesdrop on their conversation. One blind man commented, "Ultimately, being blind is still the best. If we had been sighted and seen the official without moving aside, we would have been beaten and then thrown in jail." "Yes, we just got a couple of hits. We are still the luckiest," added the other.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
57. Learning to let go. Two poor woodcutters were gathering wood on a mountain. One day they found 2 large bags of cotton and happily carried them home. The cotton was worth much more than the wood, and selling the 2 bags could support their families for a month. As they descended the mountain, each carried a bag, eager to get home quickly. Partway down, one woodcutter spotted a large bundle of cloth on the road. Upon closer inspection, it was a type of canvas, and there was more than one bundle. Excited, He proposed to his friend that they leave the cotton and take the cloth instead. His friend disagreed, arguing that they had already carried the cotton a long way, and abandoning it now would waste their efforts. He refused to switch. Unable to convince his friend, the first woodcutter reluctantly continued on with the cloth bundle alone. Further along, the woodcutter with the cloth saw a light in the forest. Approaching it, he found a large amount of gold and precious metals. Thinking this was their chance to strike it rich, he quickly suggested to his friend to drop the cotton and carry the gold and silver instead. Still skeptical, his friend suspected the gold might be fake and advised against wasting their energy to avoid ending up with nothing. The one who found the gold had no choice but to carry it alone. When they reached the base of the mountain, a heavy rain soaked them through. Worse yet, the cotton bag absorbed water and became too heavy to carry, forcing its bearer to abandon it. With no other choice, he joined his friend in carrying the gold home, empty-handed otherwise. 58. The Proud Horsekeeper. When ZHUANGZI was the prime minister of the state of Qi, he once passed by the house of a horsekeeper. One day, the horsekeeper's wife peeked through the door crack and saw her husband sitting proudly on his carriage, looking very imposing. When the horsekeeper returned home, he found his wife angry and demanding to go back to her parents' home. Confused, he asked her, "Why do you want to go back to your parents' home?" She replied, "ZHUANGZI, despite being a prime minister and renowned throughout the country, I've seen him sitting humbly on his carriage. But you, just a horsekeeper, act so arrogantly, not knowing your place. That's why I don't want to live with you anymore." Following this, the horsekeeper changed his attitude and became humble. Noticing the change, ZHUANGZI felt curious and asked him the reason. After the horsekeeper explained the situation, ZHUANGZI later recommended him for an important position in the state of Qi. 59. Behind the small dot. A teacher used white chalk to make a dot on the blackboard, then asked the students, "What do you see?" All 50 students answered in unison, "A white dot." The teacher said, "That's not correct." The students, surprised, asked, "Why not? It's clearly a white dot." One brave student walked up to the blackboard, wanting to take a closer look at the dot the teacher had made. Looking left and right, up and down, after several inspections, it was still just a white dot. He stated definitively, "Sir, there's no mistake. It's definitely a white dot." The teacher responded, "You all have 50 pairs of eyes, and all you see is a white dot?" Then another student asked, "Sir, are you asking us to use our imagination?" The teacher denied, "I don't teach literature. I asked you what you actually see." "The reality is a white dot," all 50 students chorused. "Don't you see the blackboard behind the dot and the wall behind the blackboard?" the teacher asked. At this moment, the 50 students realized their oversight. They saw only the white dot on the board but forgot about the blackboard and the wall behind it. Isn't this a common mistake we make in life? We make this mistake because of habitual thinking. As time goes by, it limits our vision. Fixed thinking only lets us see the shining star, forgetting the sky and the vast universe behind it. 60. Flowers bloom on the Buddhist altar. Before sunrise, the dew still glistened on the spring grass in front of the temple where a young man was kneeling in repentance. "Master, please forgive me." He was once a charming and free-spirited young monk in this temple 20 years ago, dearly loved and taught everything his mentor knew, hoping he would become an outstanding Buddhist disciple. However, one night he longed for worldly life and sneaked down the mountain. The dazzling city life captivated him, and from then on he lived a carefree life. Night after night was a celebration, but not truly joyful. 20 years later, one deep night, he suddenly came to his senses, as if the moonlight outside his window was cleansing his soul. Filled with regret, he quickly rode back to the temple. "Master, forgive me and accept me as your disciple once more." His mentor, disliking his reckless nature, shook his head. "No, you have committed a grave sin and must be confined in hell unless—" He pointed at the Buddhist altar. "Even the altar blooms." Disheartened, the young man left. The next morning, the mentor entered the temple hall to find, to his utter amazement, that the altar was covered in large pink and white blossoms, each emitting a sweet fragrance. There was no wind in the quiet hall, yet the flowers seemed to sway as if calling out. Realizing something profound, the mentor hurried down the mountain to find the young man, but it was too late.
Hey everyone, your comments truly matter, offering insights and motivation to others and uplifting our creative team at Lighthouse of Wisdom channel. Sharing your thoughts and experiences enriches our community. So, let's get the conversation started below and help illuminate our path with your wisdom.